So it's 12 o'clock, 12:01, and I'm going to try to share with you briefly.
Yes, sir.
Hallelujah.
There's so much going on, and I'm trying to decipher which way to go. We're talking about knowing God. All on the series, What to Expect When You're Expecting. And we're talking about being pregnant. We've gone through the phases of pregnancy and shared a little bit about identifying whether you're pregnant or not. We talked about everybody being in a different place at a different time, each pregnancy being different, birthing more than one thing at one time, and so on and so forth. We went into the act of knowing, the process of knowing, and we talked about knowing from different ways, different perspectives, whether it's to understand something or to know, as the Bible referred to it in one area, which is as a husband would know his wife. We talked about knowing. And when we were here this morning in worship, I have different segments and kind of been writing them down as God has just been sharing. And one of them is intimacy. Intimacy.
Yes.
And so that's my tearing right now, because I'm hearing, and I've got this here.
Speak up. Hallelujah.
It's very hard for somebody to get to know somebody if somebody doesn't have the opportunity to know somebody. It's hard for you to get close to a person if you don't really spend time. And it's hard for you to get to know them if you've already made up your mind that you know them, even though you really don't know them. A lot of times we've talked about, how because we've been saved for a while, it might seem like we know him. Or the fact that we can pray and get a prayer through, it seems like we know him. But we still don't really know him, because when you know him, you really look like him. We have this thing back home, it says, lie down with dog and rise up with flea. You lay with the dog. After a while, what the dog got, you got too.
That's right.
It's imperative that if we are saved, sanctified, filled with the Holy Ghost, walking and in relationship with Christ, that we should also rise up with whatever he's got.
Come on.
So if by chance we're not looking like him, our behavior is not an equivalent to the way he would handle a situation, it's possible that you don't really know him like you think you do. So we're learning about know and knowing. And we're in a place now where we have to check ourselves to see if we really do know. Is it a figment of our imagination, or is it really our truth?
Yes. Check me out.
A philosopher, David Matheson of Carleton University, asked that very same question. And he calls the type of knowledge one might have about a celebrity impersonal knowledge. While the type that would lead you to say, I know that person, he calls personal knowledge.
That's right.
But if your friend knows Johnny Depp, she can't share that with you. She can tell you everything she knows about him, but you still won't know him for yourself. Why not? It's because of what Matheson calls the communication account of knowing a person, by which you only know someone if he or she actively shares information with you, particularly intimate, private information. So then, If you and I say that we are friends and you don't really know anything about me, you have impersonal knowledge and not personal knowledge. We're not really in relationship with each other. We have a byproduct of a friend who is in relationship with you.
Come on, come on, come on.
So we can be in the same circle, know the same God as we think we know him, but there is a difference in representation of the ones in the circle because you know him differently than I know him.
That's right.
However, if we both know him,
Right.
we'll act
The same. Amen.
That's right, 'cause he's the same. Yes.
we'll talk the same.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's just the way it works.
That's the word.
So the question then is, who am I looking like? Who am I representing in this knowing process? Is my behavior, my temperament, my thought process, my mindset, is it still the same? If so, then there is a greater level that I need to know God than what I know right now.
Come closer.
We're singing the song, I Want to Know You More Than Anything.
Yes, come closer.
And it's called intrinsic motivation. It's something that happens on the inner part of you. You don't need an external circumstance to tickle you for you to want to know. There's something on the inside that just makes you want to know this person. You can't quite figure it out, but you're also at the place that because you've decided that you want to know them, you're just going to do what you need to do to get to know the person.
Yes. Sounds like a plan to me. It's a good one, Bishop.
Are you motivated?
Yes. I'm motivated too.
Is your motivation intrinsic or is it extrinsic? Which simply means that only when something happens on the outside are you interested.
Right.
Sound like
So if he does something for you, you're interested.
sound like selfishness.
If you recognize that, oh, he got something, you're interested.
Yeah.
If you hear that somebody else had a testimony about what God has done and he didn't do it for you, you're not interested.
Yes, you're not interested. Yes. It's selfishness.
It's simple because a lot of the things, knowing God will allow me, who knows God, to be excited for you, whether you know him or you don't know him.
Yes.
Knowing him makes me behave and respond in a different way.
Yes, that's right. That's good.
You have to do it in a different way.
Yes.
Newness. Change.
The process of knowing somebody on a personal level requires time.
Yes, it does.
It requires spending time.
Yeah.
There are a lot of different things that go into knowing God, but I'm just doing a quick overview of what knowing looks like.
Right.
Take your time.
Look at your neighbor
Neighbor.
and say, you think you know me? Knowing requires that you are vulnerable
Yeah.
and that you are open.
Wow. I don't like that part. Too deep.
Knowing requires less of privacy
Yes.
and more of
I
openness.
like my privacy.
Yeah.
Bishop.
That's right.
I like my privacy too. I don't want anybody in my business. I'm just telling you though, because so it is in the natural, so it is in the spiritual. And because we are private people, we all are to some degree, it still requires that you have to be less private, even with God.
Yeah. Yes.
Ooh.
Yes.
I can't show everybody my dirty drawers.
You have to. We cannot say that we're in relationship with him and we try to hold on to certain things. Everything's got to be open in order for us to know, for him to know.
Thank you, Jesus.
And he's the kind of God where he does not impose, he doesn't pry. He has a full knowledge of all of that already.
Yes, he does.
But he is just a gentleman that way, that he is waiting for you to be open and to invite him in.
Oh, Jesus.
That's why the word of God says, knock.
Stand at the door. And knock.
You have to let him in.
Open the door.
He's not going to force himself.
Yes.
Knowing Knowing God.
I want to know you, God.
Knowing requires that you carry a great deal of trust.
Yes, it does. I trust you. It's a good information.
Trust.
Yay.
Trust.
Break it down.
When you trust, you become trustworthy. If I feel I can trust you, it's also because you have proven
Trustworthy.
that you are trustworthy. God is trustworthy.
Yes, he is. Oh, yes, he is. Thank you.
I'm just talking about knowing. I'm just giving quick little overviews of knowing. Keep me on time. At 12:30, we're locking down.
We can trust you.
Psalm 25:4 says, "Make me to know your ways, O Lord.
Yes.
Teach me your paths."
Teach me, Father.
It didn't say help me.
No.
It said make me.
Make me. I like that.
Isn't it interesting how you can instruct God to do a thing? It didn't say would you. It's not a question. It's an instruction.
That's right. I give instructions.
Make me to know. Just like he maketh me to lie down in green pastures. Make me to know.
Yes.
But the only way I'm going to say make me is if I actually want that.
That's right.
Sometimes you're in a relationship, but you really want to deal with some parts of the relationship. You don't want to deal with some parts of that person with whom you're in the relationship with. You just want to, let's just kind of bypass that. Or, maybe you went through something and you don't really want to talk about certain things. Why? Trust me. I say all the time, love and hurt, they go together.
Yes, they do.
They go together.
You're a team.
And you're going to have to trust God because he's the only person that will not hurt you. The only person that will never hurt you. He says he will always be there. Now catch this. How can you say you love me, but you don't love your neighbor? How can you say you love me, but you don't talk to me? How can you say you love me, but you don't talk to your neighbor? How can you say you love me? We're in the same ministry, we don't talk to each other. How can you say that? How can you say, hold on to your love, says God? Because your love has been stained. It's been tarnished with foolishness. Because you don't love your neighbor as yourself. You don't love your neighbor like how you say love me. So I'm talking about getting to know God. Because everything that we offer up to him, we want it to be a great sacrifice. We want it to be a sweet smelling savor in his nostrils. But he says that it's only the true worshipers. It's only those who can worship it in spirit and in truth. So what is your truth? Is it your truth that is a reflection of his truth? Or is it your truth based on your own perspective? I'm talking about knowing. I'm talking about knowing. I'm trying to just prep. Once again, the biblical explanation to know God is not to know about him in an abstract or impersonal manner, but rather to enter into his saving actions. To know God is not to struggle philosophically with his eternal essence, but rather to recognize and accept his claims.
Amen.
It is not some mystical contemplation, but dutiful obedience. So when you know God, you know better, you do better.
Amen.
Anyhow, you feel like you have a right to stay the same, you have lost the truth about knowing God. He is the only one that remains the same yesterday, today, and forever. And still, he reveals and causes things to be different that would look like they're not the same, but they are. He's just a relevant God. That's why whether it was umpteen years ago or it is today, that's why the Bible is still relevant today.
That's right. That's right.
Because he knows how to reach us right where we are.
Yes.
Amen.
And he gives us people that will allow his spirit to be revealed, his word to be revealed, so that change can take place in our lives.
Yeah.
To know God.
Hallelujah.
To know is to realize. Like when you come to yourself, that's knowing. Like you recognize the loss of something. You didn't know something before, say it was a math problem and you really didn't get the formula, and finally you get the formula. Now you know how to do the problem. What happened in the garden was that they came to know.
Right.
And because they came to know, what happened?
We hit.
They became conscious. They became conscious. So for the whole time before they knew and they became conscious, they were in a state of innocence. Come on, Bible school. They were in a state of innocence. Not that they didn't have a knowledge of God, because that's what they knew most.
That's right. That's right. Oh my God.
It was his knowledge that kept them innocent. It was the knowledge of God that kept them innocent.
Jesus. Look at that.
And when they got full of themselves
That's right.
and decided to take a taste of something that they were not supposed to take a taste of, or when they decided to even allow the itchy ear to pay attention to what was being said, they lost sight and their innocence was stolen from them. And now they became conscious of what they needed not be conscious about. We would still be in a state of innocence, dwelling in his presence, feasting at his table, but self got in the way.
Jesus.
Hallelujah.
Oh God. Oh
Help
God.
us, Lord.
Do you know him?
Hallelujah.
Do we know him?
Mm.
Paul talks about it. I want to know him.
Yeah.
The fellowship of his
Mm.
suffering.
Mm.
Parts of a relationship that we don't really want.
Right.
I'm not going there yet.
That's not very fun.
I'm almost done. Knowing. If you are raw will cause God to know you. If you are ready, available, and willing, that will cause God to know you.
Yes, yes, yes.
Well, what do you mean? God already knows me. What are you talking about? You know, I was created and all of that stuff, and he knows me. He knows even what I think before I actually say it. What do you mean? It will cause God to... What happens is when you find yourself in a state where you say, God, see me up. Here I am in English. It gets his attention.
Yeah.
Because you remove the part of you that says, well God, I don't really know how, or well, maybe you should use somebody else, or haven't you seen, why don't you try Mother Helen, you know, she can do it better. Or when my pastor talks to me and I have a problem with, you know, you just go ahead and you can come up with all these different things, but when you're just raw, when you just say, you know what, I I don't really care if I look like an idiot. I'm just going to be an idiot for you. I don't really care what other people think. I will not bow down to any other gods, but I will glorify your name in season and out of season. When you just say, you know what, God, I've never done that before, but I know you're telling me to do this thing, and it don't really make any sense, but I'm going to do it anyway, and I know you're going to cover me. When God is telling you to give a whole month
Come on now.
for your first fruit, and you still have all the other stuff to do, it doesn't really matter. You're kind of in the place where you're ready, available, and you're willing, and you say, okay, God, whatever.
Yes.
God has his mind now on you.
Yeah.
So Raw will allow God to know you.
Yes.
Mary was minding her own business,
Yes, she was.
and he stepped on the scene. And because she said, your will be done, he invaded her. If you can be at a place where you truly say thy will be done, God will invade you.
Oh, Jesus.
Out of that invasion came Jesus the Christ.
Yes.
What is it that God will do with you, in you, and through you if you will just say, here I am? If you will put aside your differences, put aside your issues, put aside all the things that seem to get in the way, put aside what you think you know, put aside who you think you are, and just allow God to get to know you. How much time do I have left?
7 minutes.
7 minutes.
6 minutes. 6 minutes, let me fresh come out.
To know is more than instinct. To know is more than you have a feeling.
Yes. Know that you know that you know.
To know requires a track record. To know is to acknowledge. Not only do you acknowledge, but you also live by what you acknowledge. So, if I say that Jesus is my Lord and my Savior, I've acknowledged that He died for me. He rose for me. He's coming back to get me. Then I'm going to live my life like He and I are in a relationship, so that my representation of Him will be true.
That's right.
Yes, that's the Lord.
Don't you know that you can do one thing and it completely messes up your entire representation?
Yes.
That's why it's hard for us as believers. You know, people think that when you get saved, hey, glory. Yes, glory, but you better pray. Because everything is going to be twice as hard. Because now you're standing for righteousness. Now you're choosing to do better. Now you're choosing to this. And in the process of all of that, what is happening? There's this war going on. There's this war going on. The process of getting to know requires you to fight.
Yes.
Sometimes you have to fight for what you want.
That's right.
Stand up. Stand up. Stand up.
So many things come in the way of getting to know God. It can be life. It can be what you think. It can be your relationships. It can be your past.
Yes. Help us, Lord.
Past.
It can be your situation.
Past.
Help us, Jesus.
Past. Forgotten. Yes, Jesus. Hallelujah. Past.
So we can't afford to allow those things
No, we cannot.
to get in the way.
No. Truck.
But you've got to fight. Yes, like that truck this week.
Get out the way.
It's a serious thing. Getting to know God is so on purpose.
Amen.
My challenge to you, and I'm closing out, we're going to pick up. Next week, I want the microphone by
Right after worship.
11:30.
Oh, I know that's right.
Bishop has spoken.
So that I can really get in to this thing.
Yes. So much sugar, man. One whole drink.
Worship,
Yeah.
prayer,
Amen.
fellowship is a part of knowing God.
Amen. Yes.
And we're going to go through each section. Next week, we're going to start to talk about intimacy. Intimacy. Because we must soul search so we can empty out to be able to handle
Yes.
what He's about to pour in.
Come on now. Jesus.
And if you're not right, get right.
Amen.
If you're not right with somebody, get right. You have an issue, get right.
That's right. Hallelujah.
Because His pot is above,
Yes, Lord.
and it is in a pouring position.
Come on now.
But if you are filled with foolishness, you're going to miss it and still be in His presence.
There we go. There we go.
Help us, Daddy.
It is not about pointing fingers at anybody else. It is about pointing all 5, 10 of them at yourself.
That's right.
Find your fault. Find your problem. Find your issue. Find it. And fix it.
Hallelujah.
Because we refuse to miss out.
That's right. That's right.
And in order for us to become intimate with God, we must be true with ourselves and with others.
Amen.
Far gone are the days where we are upset and we don't say anything. Or we act like, but then we're funny. It can happen everywhere else, but it won't happen here.
That's right.
Not in the glory zone.
No.
We don't have time.
No.
We don't have time.
Not at all.
And we want to hear, well done.
Hallelujah.
So we're going to talk about being intimate with God.
Yes.
Today was a simple expression of that. And I'm going to challenge you. We have to put some, you can